is in East Timor. Let us check if he managed to get online with a presentation of the East Timor Ireland Solidarity Campaign, from the local to the global. Thank you very much. Welcome. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Peter, for that wonderful presentation. Good evening. It's like the Eurovision Song Contest. Good evening. Diakalai. And I'm greatly honored to be making this broadcast, particularly from where I'm making it from, which is CAMSTL, Centro Audiovisual Maxtal Timor-Leste. Our dear friend Max, who is no longer with us, but whose footage was my first knowledge of East Timor. I'd never heard of East Timor before early 1992, when Cold Blood, the massacre of East Timor, came on the television. I watched it with a few neighbors, and it was truly horrific. And what I wondered was, if what was being said in the film, that so many people had died, why had we never heard of this place? I mean to say, we live in a world where a so-called free press exists. So obviously something had gone wrong. I remember that night particularly because I couldn't sleep. It was a very dramatic moment in my life. And I'd seen in passing other situations in Central America, in Vietnam, where I was never pushed to do anything or to become involved. And I must say at this stage, very honestly, that was in 1992 when I saw Cold Blood. And recently, last week in fact, I had the very same experience with the horror of not being able to sleep following the murder of Shireen, the Palestinian journalist, and the horrific scenes of Israeli troops attacking a funeral. I thought I would never see these things in my life again, but I saw them and I was shocked. Myself and my neighbors, following the showing of Cold Blood, the massacre of East Timor, we set up a campaign called East Timor Ireland Solidarity Campaign. And we changed one of my bedrooms into an office. We had nothing. We didn't even have a telephone line. We had no furniture, office furniture. But we were also moved by what we saw in East Timor, in Max's film, that we had to do something. So we were very much, as Peter said, a grassroots campaign. And we went into the centre of Dublin, knocked on offices, struck luck in a union office where they gave us a typewriter. We went back to the bus stop, got on the bus, brought the typewriter home, and started using it slowly because none of us knew how to type. One of the first letters we wrote was to the paper of record in Ireland, the Irish Times, informing them that we had a campaign up and running for East Timor, and we were delighted to see that it was published. And the joy we experienced in seeing East Timor in print for the very first time was so heartening and terrific. We had a modest response to the letter, just a few people wrote, but those few people who wrote became so active in the campaign. And as Peter mentioned earlier, one of them, great Joe Fernandez, was from Goa, and that pushed him to become involved. We contacted then Amnesty International, and and they had limited knowledge for us, but they did give us the telephone number and the name of a person who became my mentor. And I telephoned London and I spoke to this woman. And I have to tell you honestly, when she spoke to me, I was so intimidated by, sorry, Peter, her Oxford middle class accent that I was going to hang up the phone because I blurted out all the emotional feelings I had about East Timor. And she said to me, "Can you repeat it? I didn't understand a word you said." So I repeated it slowly. And that woman said to me, I remember so many things that people said to me. "Oh, Ireland." She said, "We've been waiting for you." And her name was Carmel Budiarjo. And she sent us books. She sent us reading material, the Tapall Bulletin, which informed us and brought us up to date. And most, like Max, like Professor Barbeda, Carmel was a magnificent woman. In your life, you're lucky to experience and meet great people. We decided then to have a formal launch of the campaign, and we gathered people around us. And we did it on a Good Friday, 1992, with a protest walk. Irish people are great at protesting. We protest everything. And we walked from the British to the American to the Australian embassy. And the theme of our walk was the crucifixion of East Timor. And we got very good radio and television coverage of the walk. And so the campaign was launched. One letter that was handed to us while we were walking by a man in a car, he stopped and he handed us an envelope. So we read the small words inside. And as I say, some words will always be with you. And he said, "I was listening to the Gay Byrne Show, which was the most popular radio program in Dublin. And he said, I was very much taken by the story of East Timor. We had done the radio interview and we had Stavo Cabral over for the launch of the campaign. And Stavo told his story. But the letter went on to say, as a Jew, I want to be associated with your campaign. Of all human crimes, genocide is the most horrific. And that's what was said to us that day. So from there, we went to every corner, to every small town, to every village in Ireland. And we spoke to anybody who would listen to us, because we weren't seasoned campaigners, but we knew that without a mass movement or a movement of people behind us, nobody would listen to us. So we based our campaign on two things. One was not to be offensive to people. Timor needed friends, and we could not push people away. And the second thing was to set up a campaign wherever we spoke. And as Peter said, wherever we went, we got radio interviews, media interviews, and built up this mass movement in Ireland, which we then got to pressure Irish politicians about East Timor. And we know all politics is local. And these people in their constituencies wrote to their local and national representatives and made representations for East Timor. As an aside here, I just want to mention one thing that I didn't know, and I see Pat Walsh on the screen. Pat informed me that when himself and his wife Annie went to County Kilkenny, they saw a memorial about famine, which resonates so much with the Irish. And I didn't know at the time, but East Timor was one of the nations mentioned. And I never knew that until Pat told me. I hope I don't waffle on too much. I tend to waffle. We moved our offices into the centre of Dublin, into Dame Street. And from there, we recruited more volunteers to come and serve with us. We got patrons, and I'm delighted to say that the current president of Ireland, President Michael D. Higgins, was one of our foremost patrons as a member of Parliament and a senator, and spoke loudly about what happened in Timor. I want to come on now to something that Peter mentioned, and that was the visit of Paul Keating. We heard that Paul Keating, the Australian Prime Minister, was going to visit Ireland. And we decided that we had to challenge him and the successive Australian governments on East Timor. I remember the night before he arrived in Ireland, I lay in my bed and I said to myself, I may have mentioned this to you, Peter. I said to myself, my God, Tom, what have you got yourself involved in? There's a visiting Prime Minister coming and you are leading the demonstrations against his visit. And I shook in bed that night because I wasn't sure what I got involved in, but I knew I had to be involved. The man I mentioned previously, Joe Fernandez from Goa, said to me, Tom, what do you need? He was a businessman. And I said, I need to bring Shirley Shackleton from Australia to Dublin to make the presentation and make the case for East Timor. And I said, I need you to pay a lot of money for 2 full-page advertisements in the Irish Times, giving a particular Irish welcome to Paul Keating. And he said, you got it. One of our campaign members came up with the headline. Remember, Paul Keating's ancestors had left Ireland because of British imperialism. And in page 3 of the Irish Times, the headline was, welcome home, Mr. Keating. Do you remember why your family left Ireland? And then the rest of the pages were taken up by information about East Timor, what had happened there. The second advertisement, which he paid for in the Sunday Tribune, was an image of the woman who was shot in the face in the little crypt or church at Santa Cruz. And it just said, massacre in Timor. And we got some information about Timor, but then we asked a load of Irish personalities like you two, like directors like Maureen O'Hara, like Pierce Brosnan, like all those, to sign their names to the petition. So Paul Keating came, and many Irish politicians wore a little flower in support of East Timor when he addressed the Parliament. We subsequently heard that he wasn't too happy about what the campaign had set up, but we felt challenged to do it. Surely Shackleton was absolutely magnificent. And in Dublin Castle, where the official dinner was held for Paul Keating, Shirley led the demonstration. A lone bagpiper played the lament for East Timor. His motorcade swept into Dublin Castle, having to slow to take the corner. Not one word was raised in anger. But
Tom, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm very sorry. Your image, we are losing it. Sometimes it seems there is a finger on the... Something is coming over you. Yeah, now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Okay.
We are losing you, and we like to see you.
Well, if you saw me up close, you wouldn't say that. So that was Paul Keating. And I have to tell you as well, if I can, I see my image on the thing there. Eddie from CAMSTL, the director of Max's Institute, is here with me. I just want to mention there that when the Foreign Minister of Australia, Alexander Downer, came to Ireland to hand over millions of dollars for the Ireland Fund, we gave him the same welcome. And a matter of fact, it got so hot for him that he asked to see us. And he said, come and see, can we meet? He wanted us to switch off the stuff. And we met him. And all we said to him is, nothing we're going to say to you, or nothing I'm going to say to you, is going to change Australian policy. What we want you to know that the issue of East Timor is still going on and will never go away until they are free. He gave me a typical Alexander Downer look. 1994, Gus Miklat organized the APSET conference in Manila. I asked the Irish Nobel Peace Prize winner, Mairead Maguire, would she go with me to Manila? Now, anybody who knows me knows I hate flying, and I was terrified. But I was glad we went. And when we arrived in Manila, we got stopped by the immigration and the police and told we would be deported on the next flight out. I said one thing to the immigration. I said, our argument is not with the Philippines, it's with Indonesia. If you allow us to have a press conference, we will not say one word of criticism against the Philippines, but we will feel free to talk about Indonesia and East Timor. So the immigration authorities went away and they came back and they said, you will have a press conference for 20 minutes. And I said to this wonderful, wonderful woman, Mairead Maguire, Mairead, you're on. This is your press conference. And I just sat there. And if I told you, it's all about storytelling. And a couple of weeks later, I got a letter from the USA with a little clip from the New York Times. And it was from the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, Arun Gandhi, who'd I'd asked many months earlier, how can we do this? Because he was a Gandhi. And he said to me, Tom, I don't know. You have to find out. And in the letter from Memphis, where he had a nonviolent center, he showed us the clip from the New York Times, and with a little, just a little note with it saying, Tom, this is how you do it. You know, as I said, I met so many great people. Um, Jose Ramos Horta visited Ireland many times, and he was received as a foreign minister in exile, a magnificent campaigner, a magnificent Nobel laureate. And he never gave up on his people. And that's why I admire him so much. He was received as a foreign minister by our foreign minister. Ireland then joined with Portugal, who were pretty much isolated at European level about East Timor, and Ireland came in and rode behind the great work that was being done by Portugal and supported Portugal. In fact, many times Ireland raised the issue so that Portugal could not be criticized for raising the issue. In 1996, when Ireland, if I'm running out of time, just tell me to shut up. In 1996, the Irish Foreign Minister declared that as President of the European Union, East Timor was the number one priority. We had to make some difficult decisions. When a boy band, the great boy band of the time in the mid-90s, Boyzone, visited Indonesia, we approached them and asked them would they speak out about East Timor. The manager told us to get lost. In 2 words, get lost. So we then had to, an icon in Ireland, a worldwide phenomenon, Boyzone, the band, we then had to, in a respectful way, challenge them. I asked advice from my wonderful friend, the director of Amnesty International, Mary Lawler. Mary Lawler, how do we go about this? We can end up being attacked. And she said, just remember, art is freedom. They are artists. And that's what you have to say to them. Another thing on that thing, we sent a letter to Bono, to a friend, and saying, Bono, can you do something about East Timor? 2 Irish politicians, Senator David Norris and Patricia McKenna, were traveling for, Pat, you will know this, Ahinakalan. And the day before they left, there was faxes in those days. A fax came in, handwritten and signed by Bono. And it was Love from a Short Distance. And it was a wonderful lyrical song written in support of East Timor. Senator Norris and Patricia McKenna were taken off the plane in Bali and deported to Singapore, where they made known what Bono had done. In 1996, we received a great boost for the campaign when 4 young Timorese came to Ireland, Dino, Luciano, Boaventura, and Jose. And they came to Ireland because I had gone to Lisbon and I saw so many Timorese, many of them who had occupied the embassies. And I said, you must spread yourself across Europe. You must tell your story. So they came to Ireland and we said, we will try to find educational opportunities for you, but I want you to go out to the communities and tell your story. And they did. And they brought wonders to the campaign. Peter, you phoned me in 1996 and you said to me, Tom, I think Timor is going to get the Nobel Prize this year. And I said, Peter, you said that last year in 1995, but you were right. And when the news came on the radio, I jumped around the office with delight. I went down and I got on the bus and I went to where the Timorese were living and I told them. And I knew then this was it. the legitimacy of the Nobel Peace Prize shared between the religious and the political leader was the credibility, and there was no going back from here. We also had, and I'll finish up now, we also had the Pedro Pintalete and the jurists come and hold conferences in Dublin. We weren't very well organized, but they were great. We knew then that Timor was going to get his independence. We were proud to be part of the movement, part of the struggle. Very honored indeed. I'm very honored to have met such a courageous people who would never allow the unthinkable to happen. And I once asked Max, I'll just finish on this. I once asked Max, why do you think they never accepted it? And Max said to me, and I said it to Max's wife only a couple of nights ago when we were talking. And Max said to me, you know, Tom, this was years ago, they never treated them with respect. They never showed the Timorese any respect. And that's why the Timorese, a proud people, didn't accept it. Finally, Irish troops were part of the interfaith music movement. Irish Aid opened an office in Timor. And I'll just finish by saying, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I hope I haven't waffled on too much. I tend to waffle. And Viva Timor-Leste. And just one other thing. Everything I heard about East Timor before I went public with it, I always checked with Pat Walsh, because Pat always never overstated or understated the case. And I'm very grateful that every time I lifted the phone in Ireland to ACFOA, that Pat always took the call. Thank you.